What's up? What's up? Back with another video today. And from the title, you can probably tell that this video is going to be a little bit of a different one because it's not really a spotlight video. It's not a manga haul video or anything like that. This was like, I've been meaning to do this for a while. It's more of like just a fun thing for me to explain what my manga journey, what it has been over the past couple of years. And so yeah, I figured today, now that I have some free time, I could pull out a bunch of different books because, you know, the best way to showcase and talk about my manga journey is with the actual books. And so right now you can't see, but my bed is completely filled with just books that I have taken out of my bookshelves. And so I guess the way that I'm going to try and do this, I haven't really planned anything, have no real structure, because I'm just going to talk. But it will just be in chronological order. So like how I got into manga, what I got into, how that developed, what I'm into now, what I want to collect for the future and read for the future, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to start off first with, I don't actually have the book here because it's in my wardrobe in like a container, and it's kind of hard to take out at the moment, and I am not bothered right now just because I've pulled so many books out from my bookshelf already. So it was like when I was a kid. So the first encounter I had with manga was when I was a kid. I bought volume 1 of Death Note in English from a bookstore, and this was, I was in primary school. So that was the very first manga that I had. I read it. I liked it a lot. I kind of understood it. Like, I mostly understood what was happening. And then I didn't continue with the manga, actually, because the book at the time was kind of like expensive. I mean, like, I was a kid, right? So that was the first thing I had. But it got me into anime in general. So I got into, like, my very first anime actually was Sword Art Online because of a family friend. They introduced me to that, and then I got into stuff like Tokyo Ghoul and Attack on Titan when it came out. So yeah, that was pretty interesting time because like the core memory for me was Attack on Titan because I was watching it when it was releasing, and that was one of my like first experiences with anime. So for that, couple of years after, it had only just been anime. And even then, I didn't watch that much. I watched like a lot of the, I guess, classic stuff like Death Note and Assassination Classroom and all that. I'm trying to remember what I watched, but Gintama as well. But yeah, manga didn't really become like a big thing for me until I would say 2019. 2019? Yeah, 2019. When my friend introduced me, so there were two cases. I'll pull it out first. One of my friends introduced me to Junji Ito in the whole world of horror manga. And Uzumaki was the first thing that I read from him. And another friend introduced me to another manga, I think that was called Imperfect Girl by Nishio Isin, something like that. And so mainly what I started off with is, let me just pull all this out. I started off with horror manga. That was my, I guess, real beginning to manga in general. So I read Uzumaki first and I got hooked. So this specific edition, let me just push this out a bit. This specific edition is like a collected edition in Japanese. Very thick book. So the entirety of Uzumaki was in here. But yeah, immediately hooked. I had never seen anything like this before. So I started reading everything Junji Ito. Went on to Tomie and Gyo and all of his other long-running stories. Then I jumped onto a lot of his short stories, one-shots, and from Junji Ito, I branched out to other horror manga and also other, like, I guess, very like slasher type manga. So this is Pumpkin Night, volume 1. I'm not up to date. It's still ongoing to this day. I remember reading this and just being pretty hooked, actually. It's extremely violent. I'm not sure how much I can show of it, but it's essentially about this killer who is taking revenge on those who had bullied her and, of course, society, and extremely violent. Still one of the most violent manga that I've read to this day. And this is the girl here. She is taking revenge on not just the bullies, but I guess everyone in general. So this was one of my early reads back when I was starting, and then moved on to other manga like Hideout by Masumi Kekizaki, which is another horror manga that a lot of people know for its extremely detailed artwork. Got some cool color pages here, but very detailed art. Extremely dark. It's like another like murder story, but with a twist, which I won't spoil too much. Well, actually, I won't spoil it all because yeah, I think it's a pretty good story. But the detail is the main thing that people know it for. I'm not too entirely sure if this is translated in English. I do know it has been translated into other languages, but that's an example of another horror manga I started off with. And by the time that this video is released, hopefully I would have released my spotlight video on this manga here, which is God's Left Hand, Devil's Right Hand by Umes, of course, the grandfather god of horror. And surprisingly enough, I got into Umes firstly through, what was it? Drifting Classroom. I think that was my first read. And then it was Orochi and then Devil's Left Hand. At the start, I didn't really like Umes, actually, which is very surprising, like thinking about it, because I love Umes now. He's one of my favorite mangaka. But I guess at the time, I was only used to, more modern manga that had come out in the early 2000s and like past that. So I guess I just wasn't used to it, and it was a new thing for me that I wasn't used to older art styles and older ways of storytelling. Because I did talk about in the spotlight video for this, the paneling. There's a lot of the paneling wasn't as dynamic in this manga, and a lot of text and all of that. So I wasn't used to that. But don't worry, of course, I'm a very big fan now, so that has all changed. But yeah, those are some of the examples of the horror manga that I read starting off. And of course, I've read a ton of horror manga, slasher manga, B-grade horror stuff. So those are just a couple, because a lot of my manga are in containers that are hard to pull out. So just giving you a sample of that. But at the same time, a bit after, I was only reading horror manga for a while. So one of my friends was like, you should probably expand your reading taste, your horizons a little bit, and start reading other stuff. So one of the other things that I started getting into was, of course, Inyo Asano, another very popular mangaka. And this was the actual, all of the 7 volumes of this manga, Oyasumi, Good Night Punpun in English, was the first set of English manga I bought since the Death Note Volume 1. So the first time I got paid at my part-time job, I picked this up, and the rest of the set as well. So Good Night Punpun holds a very special place in my heart, because it was pretty much the first manga series that I collected physically. And of course the story is so good as well. The art style is so good. Inio Asano, I think, is such a master of the craft of manga. And this sort of allowed me to start exploring seinen manga a lot more, because, you know, as with a lot of, I guess, beginners getting into manga, you look at the market and what is popular in the West, and it's always shonen, seinen stuff. So for me, someone who didn't know anything about manga, that was just what I got into first. So, you know, this one being a gateway into other seinen manga, and of course, after Goodnight Punpun, I started reading, what was it? I started reading like stuff from Urasawa Naoki, like Monster, for example. I started reading Vagabond by Inoue. So a lot of the very popular seinen masterpieces I started getting into. And just to give you a timeline, I got this in 2020 or 2019. Actually, no, it might have been 2019. So 5 years ago now, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's been 5 years. But yeah, Goodnight Punpun. Started getting into the rest of Inio Asano's other works. This one is Ozanari-kun, which is not actually translated in English because it might be too weird. Like, I guess I can see why Viz has not licensed this in English, because Viz does pretty much all of Inio Asano's works and localizations in English. Ozanari-kun is one of Asano's earlier manga, very early on, and it is supposed to be like a gag manga that follows Ozanari and his boss, who, you know, he bullies his boss a lot. And it's also cool that this entire manga is in color as well. But it does get, it's like I guess a commentary, social commentary on work life. Also has some like drama happening, big twist coming at the end. But it is very strange, very, very strange and surreal. And I actually really like it a lot for being how different it is. And also the color is just amazing just to read through. But yeah, this one came out in 2012, so long time ago. But I started reading all like the rest of Inio Asano's stuff. Like, I've got them on my shelf. Dead Demons, which has an anime, City of Light, Girl on the Shore, that sort of thing. So I was getting addicted into all of that. And you know, what other seinen manga did I get into? I got into the series Innocent. This is Innocent Rouge. Innocent is coming out right now in English, being published by Dark Horse? Dark Horse. Yeah, I think it's Dark Horse. Yeah, it should have been Dark Horse. And Innocent Rouge, just for anyone who doesn't know, who's still reading Innocent, it's the same story. It's just I guess like the story is split like in two parts. This is just the sequel to it. So Innocent Rouge, manga based in the period of the French Revolution. And of course, this is by Sakamoto Shinichi. But yeah, I fell in love with Shinichi and his Sakamoto Shinichi and his artwork. Extremely detailed. So Innocent Rouge is following the executioner family of the... I forgot their names. It's been a while. But, the Sansons. The Sansons, yes. And this specific manga was all done digitally. But Sakamoto Shinichi used to do manga in, like, just physical drawings, which is insane. Let me just pull that out. Like, an example of it, actually. Just... 1 second. This one, for example. So this is the Climber, Koko no Hito, which I think has been announced in English too. Sakamoto did this manga physically. Like, he did a lot of the art. It was physical drawings, which is insane to me because that level of detail has been maintained in all of his works. So This one came out before Innocent Rouge, but highly recommend both of them. Very well known within the manga community, especially those who read Seinen manga. Innocent is one of my favorite manga of all time. The amount of crazy moments and the chaos and the destruction and all of the deep moments within this series just makes it 10 out of 10 for me. So I really recommend picking up Innocent. It's gonna be a ride that is very unique. So yeah, that was Seinen manga stuff. Some other Shounen manga, of course, we've got JoJo. This here is JoJo Lands, so part 9 of JoJo. I got into JoJo in 2020. Yeah, pretty much during lockdown. This is part 9 is the most recent parts in the series, and I haven't caught up to it yet. So this is the only volume that I have, and this is JoJo. But JoJo, I think, amazing, like really fun series. You know, if you want some just dumb fun with insane powers and stands and all that type of stuff, JoJo is great. I've only watched one season of JoJo actually, because I've read everything else. I watched part 6, Stone Ocean, and that was pretty good actually. Unfortunately, it didn't get as much attention as it deserved. But yeah, JoJo was one example. Attack on Titan, of course, very, very special manga for me too. This is, I've got the entire manga on my bookshelf, but I'm just pulling one of my favorite covers of it. So this is Eren, volume 27. So spoilers if you are not up to season 4. I believe this covers season 4, season 3. I'm just going to flick through it. But Attack on Titan is another manga that is extremely special to me. The storytelling is insane. The amount of detail, the foreshadowing, all of that makes this series such a... it's so rewatchable as well. Of course, there are some flaws in it. Some parts of the plot that, you know, might not fit or are a bit confusing. But overall, you know, for me, like starting off with anime and Attack on Titan being one of my earliest forays into the medium, Attack on Titan is, yeah, no one can persuade me that it isn't one of the best manga ever created, in my opinion. But yeah, that's just me, you know, growing up with it and literally going from start to finish, experiencing all of that was an insane journey. But yeah, I think I've got one more manga as well to cover in this little section of manga I started off with. Nishioka Kyodai, Child of God, Kami no Koromo. This one was another, you know, when I was in my horror reading phase, this one was like I guess a lot of people know it. It is, I guess, notorious for being quite confronting and vulgar. I mean, we start off the story with our main character being born into a toilet, and it is a very violent and a very brutal manga. But I guess this was like the first point of contact I had with alternative manga, Garo, that sort of thing. And I'm going to be careful showing stuff like this. I do want to make a video on Child of God in the future. It's pretty much about like a psychopath who rejects society, kills, all that stuff. It is very messed up and very disturbing if you do not like that sort of thing. But yeah, Nishioka Kyodai, this was the very first story I read from them. But yeah, I think that wraps up the early stages of my reading. And again, I've only picked just samples, just random books off my shelf to represent this early part of my manga journey. There are tons and tons of manga that I read then, so I have like not mentioned 95% of the manga that I have read in that beginning period of reading manga. So yeah, so what I'll do now is I'm just gonna move all of these books out and then I'm going to take in the next section of books. Okay, so I guess we'll start off with a little bit of eclectic bunch. So another manga that, you know, as I was getting into manga, learning more about it, moving away from the more popular and well-known, like, you know, once you discover a medium, you start off, I guess you do start off with the most popular stuff because you don't know what to expect. You don't know what is in the medium. Once I started to get used to what manga as a medium was and what sort of series were offered and everything that was out there, I started digging for more, digging a bit deeper. Palepoli, this is by Usamaru Furuya, who also serialized in Garo, who did the Lychee Light Club adaptation in manga. Palepoli is a collection of like short works, like 4-panel works that is supposed to be like gag, but very dark humor. This here is a reference to Hayashi Seiichi's Red Coloured Elegy. And Palepoli, I'm not joking, and like I'm not exaggerating at all. This is probably one of my favorite manga ever because it's so different. Especially because Furuya, when he was creating this, he didn't really have much experience with manga in the first place. So the resulting pieces that he made were so unique, and they're funny, they're dark, the art is amazing, the humor is just insane, and there's a lot of references. To other Garo mangaka and works, references to just manga in general, pop culture, and you know, eventually, once I figure out all of the references, I will make a video explaining all of them, but I think it will, I'm not sure if I'll ever understand it all because there are so many references in this, and some of them are so obscure. Like, for example, this is easy, right? Doraemon. That's an easy reference to understand. This one here, you know, it might seem like just a normal bear, but this was a this bear is by Shingo Iguchi, who serialized manga in, I believe, both Axe and Garo. Maybe not Garo, I know Axe. This bear is called Vanrogh the bear, and like, you know, when you just read this without knowing, it just looks like a normal bear. But this bear is a character from an Axe mangaka in his works, and without reading Axe, I would have never known that. So think of that, how many references would I still not know? Because I'm still learning a lot about Garo and Axe, and oh man, I really don't know when I'll be able to understand everything, but you know, it's an ongoing journey and it's fun. But yeah, Palepoli was one of my favorite discoveries in that time, after the beginning stages, getting into more stuff that I was searching for that was different. And this is also not manga, but this is an art book. The reason why I brought this up was because this is my very first art book that I bought. And this was with a friend. We visited local Kinokuniya, can't speak. And this is Nagori by Akiya Kane. And we both bought this art book. It was a blind purchase. So I didn't know anything about this artist. I have never seen their art, but just from the cover, I was like, you know what? Let's just buy an art book. And this was my very first art book that I bought, and one that is also very special because Akiya Kane's art is so good. A lot of very bright colors, a variety of colors, big variety of colors, and really cool character designs and backgrounds as well. So I do highly recommend this art book if you like this sort of style of art. Bright, vibrant, cute as well. Very dynamic designs, fashion, that sort of thing. But yeah, this was at the time, like 2020, first art book that I ever bought, which is really cool. So starting then, I started to collect more and more manga. You know, that's when I bought the rest of Attack on Titan. I was buying a lot of other ongoing series. And I guess I don't know if there was anything else in particular. It was just me starting my collecting journey a lot. Because in the beginning stages, I was reading a lot online. But now, at that stage in 2020, 2021, was where I started to actually collect physical books, collect manga. And I started off with English, but then I realized that, Japanese manga is a lot cheaper. There's a lot more variety. So let's go with Japanese manga. I am bothered enough to translate them. And, you know, at some point when I was in, I have a story as well. Let me pull it out, actually. This series here is a series called Hakaiju. I guess that translates to creature, by Shingo Honda, which is, it's a series that's like action with kaiju, a lot of gore, people changing into kaiju, pretty much a lot of fighting and monsters. I was reading this online. I have the whole series now. There's like 20 something volumes. And I think online it was only translated until like maybe the second last volume. And I was so desperate to read the ending of it that I looked this up on YouTube. So desperate, I looked this up on YouTube and I found, I think it was like some Japanese channel that did like a very slow, like their YouTube, the video was just slow panning through each panel, page by page. And I think it's deleted now. But I was so desperate that I had that on my computer, and I would use my phone to Google Translate each speech bubble that came up. So that was how I was like desperate enough, and I knew that if I wanted to read a story, I would buy the Japanese if there was no other option available. So that sort of started everything for me with collecting Japanese manga. But yeah, Hakaiju is a really crazy series. I would recommend it if you like monster fights, if you like a lot of action and gore. It's not a great story, like critically, it's a very typical story, but the art is just insane. The monster designs are insane as well. But yeah, that was just a bit of a tangent to that. What was I talking about? Yeah, collecting manga. And then into this pretty much continued like 2021, I collected a lot. 2022, I think end of 2022, that's when I stopped reading manga a little bit because I was reading more books in general. So just like a lot of classic literature. So that took up a lot of my time instead. But then after in 2022, especially the end of 2022, I started getting into more alternative manga. And on the right here, we have some Daisuke Ichiba, which I am a huge fan of. And I want to bring up now how I got into Ichiba and I guess that whole world. So in 2021, I came across a channel that was named Koenji Shonen Reviews, I think. Koenji Shonen Reviews, yeah. Which is now Japan Book Hunter. So at that time, Sean was making a lot of haul videos, a lot of videos about his manga buying and all that, and it was like the best thing ever for me because at the time, there wasn't much that I was seeing on manga that wasn't translated in English by an English speaker. So Sean's channel was an amazing resource, and that got me into a lot of manga that is not translated in English, and a lot of different types of manga, especially alternative manga, gekiga. That's where I learned about, gekiga. That's where I learned about Garo. So without having that, then I probably would have never heard of it. And the reasons why I pulled these two specific books up is because, first of all, Daisuke Ichiba Hospital Train. I got this for my... I got a holopress haul for my birthday a couple of years ago in 21. So this was the very first Ichiba, one of the very first Ichiba manga that I got, because I also bought like The Life of Namazuko and KSKHH, I believe. So this was starting off my journey with Ichiba. And then at the time as well, you know, the Japan Book Hunter site was slowly starting to open up, to build, and to start shipping books and selling books to other people. And actually, this is a story that is pretty funny. I was looking at the site and I was seeing like what sort of stuff was on the site, and some of the stuff interested me. I put Oni by Gonogai in my cart, and then that was where, you know, what actually happened was that, you know how sometimes like you have things in carts and then you get emailed. Sean actually emailed me, like, and he was super nice about it. He was like saying, oh, I see you're interested in Gonogai, and he just like asked a bunch of stuff whether I wanted to pick it up and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I was just looking around. I do think I will pick something up, and I did. So after that, I picked up, he had some Ichiba in stock, because I saw on his site that another Ichiba book of his was sold out. I was like, damn, I really want some Ichiba. So I picked up this book, which also came, this is more Kairanai. This book also came with a one picture, like a photograph that he had. So I picked this up from him, and pretty much from that point on, I started buying more and more from his shop. So again, a big shout out. I usually do these shout outs anyways, but a big shout out to Japan Book Hunter for kickstarting and continuing my craze in manga, alternative manga, gekiga, art books, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to explain that and how I got into Ichiba and the rest of the alternative manga that I show. And I believe it was maybe was it 2022 or 23? I don't remember actually. I'll check. But the very first post that I made on my Instagram account was on Ichiba. So, you know, because the reason why I made the Instagram account was because I didn't really know anyone who was into the stuff that I was into, like the manga that I was into, and I really wanted to like find others who would be interested in like Ichiba, for example, or maybe some people who have read Palepoli, stuff like that, where I could just start talking with people. And you know, it's amazing. I've been in the community for a couple of years now, and everyone there is so nice. You get to learn a lot about manga if you've never seen before, but also manga you know, and just having a lot of talks and discourse about it. It's really fun. And I think pretty much, yeah, like I was posting like a post a day at some point for my Instagram. And yeah, I was just addicted. You know, I liked talking to other people about manga. I've learned a lot from the people on Instagram. Like mainly the community I've been a part of has been the Instagram community. I don't have TikTok. Actually, I actually do have TikTok, but I legitimately never use it. I only use it to see the posts of one of my friends on that platform. So yeah, I don't really know what the TikTok manga and anime community is like. YouTube, I'm not really sure of either, because I've only, I guess, just joined the past couple of months. So yeah, it's always just been Instagram, and Instagram is a very welcoming community. There's a lot of different things you can learn, so many like diverse accounts as well. There's accounts for, you know, gekiga, there's accounts for purely just erotic works, there's accounts for alternative manga, Shounen, Seinen, everything. So I do highly recommend diving into the Instagram manga community, because it's an amazing place there, and I've met a lot of very cool people, very nice people there as well. But yeah, so I guess that summarizes like the middle part of my manga journey, which is just getting into the lesser known underground, alternative, and weirder kind of manga. So, oh, I also wanted to say as well, I forgot, yes, I pulled this out for a reason. This was also the very first time that I bought from LDC. This is Butter Medicine, my very first large format book by Ichiba, and this is like one of my most prized possessions, I would say. Out of everything I own, this book is amazing. It's insane. I've showed it off in my Ichiba collection video, or one of the videos. But yeah, this is where I really started to get into Ichiba. As you may know, I'm a huge fan. I was very obsessed with Ichiba. I'm still collecting so much stuff that he has published. I think his very first book was in 1997, and he has published, I think, annually since then. So the amount of books that he's put out, the amount of prints that he's put out is pretty endless at this point. Even with my collection right now, I'm still missing a lot of his work. So yeah, Butter Medicine, this book, it's one of my favorite books in my entire collection, no doubt about it. And yeah, so this was just on that same note with the Ichiba talk that I had. Butter Medicine, very special book for me, and it's a very like rare book now. It's out of print, so if you ever do see this, pick it up because it's so good. This book is crazy good. The quality of the prints as well. There's also this little shine that you can see in the silver. Amazing stuff. So yeah, let me just get the rest of the books now. So I guess I'm just going to bring everything across. I don't know what to start off with. The reason why I don't know what to start off with is because I started getting into everything, I guess. Everything that is in terms of like Heta Uma, weird Yokoyama works, Gekiga with Tsuge, shoujo horror, more contemporary works. It's just, I got into everything. So I guess I'll just do it in random order because I don't actually know the order in which I got into all of these. It's just in this point in my journey, the beginnings was just Shounen, Seinen stuff. Started getting into a bit of shoujo, BL, GL too, but mainly Shounen, Seinen. And then next period was opening up, learning about alternative manga, Japan Book Hunter, Ichiba, that sort of thing. And now in this period, which is like when I was early in the stages of my Instagram account, also collecting quite rapidly too, and reading quite rapidly, all of this came sort of at once. So I'll just go through it in a random order. Shoujo horror, this one was more of a recent one, I guess, but this is, I've shown it off on the channel, Kitsune Man no Shoujo. This is a work by Kazuo Umezu, of course, who did Drifting Classroom and God's Left Hand, Devil's Right Hand. So shoujo horror is still an ongoing thing for me now as well, but that was one of the discoveries that I had. Learning about shoujo horror is really cool, and also, you know, a big part of the Koenjin Shonen channel at the time was shoujo horror. So that was a very big thing. Another big thing that I got into was Heta Uma. So this is Penguin Rice by Teruhiko Yuna. Sorry, I can't speak to that, but I'm still like, it's like 11 a.m, but I woke up late, so forgive me if I am not speaking properly. But Heta Uma was just life-changing for me. These are two examples. So of course we have King Terry's Penguin Rice, which I have shown off on the channel before. Pretty much one of the progenitors of Heta Uma, meaning bad good drawings that may seem bad upon first glance, but require a lot of skill to pull off and that sort of stuff. So this is the very first Ebisu book that I ever read. I Want to Be Stupid, which is translated in English, so do pick that up. This is a collection of his stories, one-shots, and because this was the very, like, Ebisu in general is just crazy. So learning about Ebisu and reading this book for the first time, I was blown away, and I was pretty much addicted from that point on. So I have shown this book off on the channel too, but if you love dark humor, you love satire and just chaos, a lot of sex, then Ebisu is for you. So Heta Uma, another big phase of mine that I'm still collecting to this day. Like, I'm still learning a lot about Heta Uma, still finding a lot of Heta Uma works. So it's an ongoing journey. What else did I get into? I got into Yuichi Yokoyama, who I guess I will describe with the label neo manga, as he likes to call it. Travel was my very first manga that I picked up from Yokoyama, and it's a fully wordless manga about a couple of guys traveling, and that's it. A couple of guys traveling. You get a lot of shots of the scenery, the backgrounds, completely wordless, and this I was just hooked instantly because it was so unique, and it still is unique. The way that he panels his stories so that like each panel, going from panel to panel, is an equal increment of like 2 seconds, for example. And there's a very clear order to everything that's happening. And it's just the way that he draws his people, draws his backgrounds is so captivating to me. Like, it's also kind of hard for me to word as well how cool this is. So yeah, Yuichi Yokoyama, I do have a lot of his works, a lot of his art books as well, but Travel was the very first one that I picked up and instantly hooked. I was reading this on the train to work, and I finished it very quickly, so had to pick up a lot of other things. So I think out of everything he's done, New Engineering is probably my favorite manga from him. Baby Boom is really good as well, but I really highly recommend Travel too. Yeah, what else did I get into? I got into a lot more, like, definitely, you know, throughout this entire journey, I've tried to balance my tastes and my reading, especially after getting out of the beginning stages. So balance, what I mean by balance is just, you know, sometimes I'll read some classic Shounen action manga, and then I'll read some Seinen manga, which are different in tone, and then I'll move on to like one-shot collections or romance, BL, GL, that sort of thing, just to like keep things fun and interesting rather than just reading shonen after shonen. So these are some examples that I have and that I'm very fond of in terms of the manga. This is a short story collection by Yumi Sudo, which is Hotai Shoujo Kikan, which is like what was it? The period of bondage girls, and by period I mean like time period in that definition. So yeah, this is a short story collection of yuri manga, so girls love manga. Very wholesome, very emotional, sometimes very heartbreaking too. And Yumi Sudo is another favorite mangaka of mine. Her character designs and the facial expressions that she has is also very memorable as well. So this is one of my favorite books from her. Another example of like a more contemporary work is this one here, which is like, what does it translate to? The Bad Candy That I Gave You by Kaiko Fuyumushi. Oh, it says there, I didn't realize. Yeah. Another collection of one-shots that is leaning more towards the magical realism side. Very captivating works. It's very surreal and strange, but the very soft art style that she has is so like complementary to the style, the stories themselves. So we've got stories about friends turning into like butterflies, stories about like time loop stories, a story about the moon encroaching slowly towards a girl. Very strange stuff about mermaids, disappearing like people, forest, that thing. Kaku Fuyumushi is another favorite manga of mine. I do believe I did a video on this, but still reading through a lot of their works, and I can't get enough of it. Plus the cover is really cool too. Like each, I guess, subject in the cover is from a different story. So that's the moon. These two characters I think are together in one story. This is from one of the stories in there as well. There's butterfly one, the tree branch from the forest story. So yeah, just another example of stuff I read and I've loved. Both of these are 10 out of 10 for me. But yeah, so let's continue on. What other stuff do I get into? This is, as I think many people know, this is number 5 by Matsumoto Taiyo. And I didn't really, well, my first introduction to Taiyo was not a great one, not going to lie. So Ping Pong. I think a lot of people know Ping Pong, the anime, Ping Pong, the manga. But my first encounter with it was not the anime or the manga. It was the live action. And this was in Japanese class when I was in high school. Early high school, junior high. So we watched Ping Pong, the live action. And it, to me, like at that time, I hated it. It was so cringy. I just did not like it at all. It wasn't my thing. I'm not sure what other people really think about it because, you know, no one really talks about the live action. It's mainly just the manga or the anime, right? Especially the anime as well. But the live action gave me a really bad impression of it. I still haven't read or watched Ping Pong, actually. I will. But Matsumoto Taiyo, number 5 is an amazing manga. Like, I read it end of 2022 maybe, so it's been a while. I don't exactly remember the full story because it's quite confusing as well. But number 5 is published in English by Viz Media. It's, if I would describe it, like kind of action mystery, but very, very strange and definitely not linear. So it's a non-linear narrative with a lot of characters, and you are kind of expected to try to figure things out on your own. Very just strange things happening, but it's one of the best manga that I've read, like hands down. Even though it's so confusing, I love confusing. I love non-linear. And number 5, this is the perfect edition of it, I guess. So there's 4 volumes of it. I do have all of them, but I'm just showing off this one here. But number 5, I highly recommend if you really want something that is strange, but embodies the definition of creativity. So you want something creative? Go for Taiyo. This goes for the same for his other manga, Cats of the Louvre. That one's really good as well. I highly recommend that too. But other than this and Cats, I don't think I've read another book by him yet. So yeah, there's so many mangaka that I do want to read that I will get into, but yeah, it'll be just over time. And I mean, like, I'm saving it because I know Taiyo is a amazing mangaka. Both of the manga I have read from him were pretty much perfect. So I'm not too worried about like exhausting his manga now. I guess I'll just save it until, you know, when I'm in a reading slump, I'll pick him up and then, you know, enjoy the rest of the stuff. So yeah, now let's move on to another thing that I got very heavily into, Gekiga. So this here is my very first Gekiga book that I bought, Hayashi Seiichi's The Red Coloured Elegy, translated by Ryan Holmberg. And I have shown this off on the channel before, but a very strong, memorable, and unique manga about relationships, cohabitation. And Ryan Holmberg's essay in this is so informative, but at the same time, I think this essay as well is, compared to a lot of his other essays, is a lot more easy to understand or simple. I think because, like, for example, comparing it to Neji Shiki's essay, you know, definitely a big difference between how complex they are, how much information there is. Hayashi's the essay in this Hayashi book is a lot more easy to understand, in my opinion. So if you do want to start getting into Gekiga, I highly recommend Red Coloured Elegy. Beautiful book. It's one that will make you feel quite emotional, and just there's a unique mood to Gekiga, and especially the Gekiga of Garo, that I love. It's a lot of reflection, introspection, very gloomy and mysterious and surreal tones as well. And I think Red Coloured Elegy really embodies that, especially coming from Hayashi, who was one of the most well-known artists in the Garo legacy, I guess. So yeah, that was the very first Gekiga book that I bought. One of the more recent ones that I have is Nejishiki by Tsuge Yoshiharu, another very famous, probably if not one of the most famous names out of Garo. Other than, you know, Shirato Sanpei or Mizuki Shigeru, Tsuge is very much up there. So this one as well, an amazing book. I think Nejishiki is one of the best one-shots that I've ever read ever, because personally it suits my taste like 1-to-1. This is everything I would want in a story or a one-shot, and all of it has appeared in Nejishiki. The art, the randomness of it, how strange and surreal it is, how unusual a lot of the subject matter is. So yeah, Nejishiki is amazing. Probably my favorite collection of works so far out of Tsuge's English series. And also you have the 50-page essay, which is extremely informative at the back. Holmberg did an amazing job for this. Like I've read it through once, but I do definitely need to go back, because what's really good about it is that the essay is also sectioned off by story as well. So each one-shot in here has its own section in the essay. So you know, when I do have time, I want to go back and read the story again, and then read the essay part of it, go back and forth. And also I'm still learning a lot about Garo and a lot of the other magazines and manga that were associated with it, like Gento and Yagyo, which I'm starting to collect now. So it's just a constant journey of reading about all these different topics in alternative manga. And like sometimes as well, like when I'm bored, I would just go to Ryan Holmberg's website and read essays of his that are like up there. So recently I was reading a Sasaki Maki and Hayashi essay, which I'm still reading now, and it's my second time reading it because there's just so much information, but it's always so interesting. So I really appreciate the direction that Gekiga is taking in the English speaking market now, because we're getting a lot, and it's really just fun to see. You know, in terms of future releases, you look forward to Shirato Sanpei's Kamuiden. Look forward to what else is there coming out in terms of Gekiga. Well, not really Gekiga, but like along the same vein, there's going to be a Maruo Suehiro tankobon coming out in English. There will be more works from the Smudge imprint, from Living the Line. Of course, more works from Glacier Bay. Oh, actually, yeah. Now that I remember, I do have more to talk about. It's not over yet for this section, because, yeah, this is the most I've ever read, ever. You know, this part of my manga reading journey, so there is a lot to go through. Let me just get the books out. Okay. Pull this out. Okay. So, I should have unsleeved this. Let me do it now, actually. One second, just unsleeving this. Okay, so still continuing on. A lot of stuff. I'm sorry this is out of order, because I legitimately do not remember which I got into first. But let's start off with these Garo issues here. So, why did I bring out these three specific Garo issues that are quite random? We've got a 1975 one, cover by Shinji Nagashima. We have a 1972 one cover by Sasaki Maki, and a 1966 issue cover by Shirato Sanpei. So these are seemingly random, and they actually are random, because for me, what ties them all together is that these 3 issues are the very first Garo issues that I ever owned and ever bought. So I bought these 3 together, and the first one that I read from these 3 was the 1966 issue. So this 66 issue is of November. So covered by Shirato Sanpei, and of course Kamuiden chapter 24. So I was like looking at Mandarake, seeing what Garo issues they had, and of course they had a lot. So I didn't know anything at the time. I was only introduced to Garo via Instagram, via Sean's YouTube channel. So I was like, I don't understand it yet. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what types of artists, mangaka are in there. So let me just pick some of the covers that are really cool to me, and also that were on the cheaper end. So this one was on the cheaper end. This is because it was like also early on as well. So who do we have in this issue? So again, keep in mind, this was my very first exposure to Garo, and the very first time I opened up an issue and read it. So of course we have the very long section of Kamuiden, a staple in Garo. And then the next story in here was Onna, meaning woman, by Kuniko Tsurita. So I did not know anything about any mangaka or artist at this time, and this was a really interesting one to experience for the first time, because this is a wordless manga about some like cavemen, and at the time I didn't know Tsurita was the first female contributor to Garo for quite a long time. And so experiencing this for the first time in my very first Garo issue, I think was pretty perfect. Like, I think it embodies a lot of the vibes of alternative manga, and just the general feeling of it, and it got me hooked pretty much straight away. So started with that. Then we had another story I forgot the name of, but this one was a bit of like a sci-fi thing or a gag thing where people would be given the ability with like a serum or like a, I don't know, some invention to be safe. Like they would have, instead of being hit by a car, they can just slowly fly, bounce off. So I guess they're embedded with some magnetic substance. But the issue that they had is that they they start bouncing off from money, and it becomes like a thing where everyone's just like, you know what, I kind of don't want this anymore. But yeah, that was a really funny one to get into. We've also got some Susumu Katsumata, and this one, yes, this was a chapter 7, so I didn't understand really what was going on, but I just had fun flipping through. You know, like the very first Garo issue that I've ever experienced, I just had fun looking at everything. And even if I didn't really understand the stories, I enjoyed it. And this was also my very first, I believe, yes, my very first Mizuki Shigeru story ever. I mean, I have watched the Gegege no Kitaro anime, like a few episodes when I was a kid. So the remake, I'm not sure if there's an original, but it's like a modern version of it. But this is the very first Mizuki Shigeru one-shot and thing that I've ever read from him. And it's one that's like, follows this curse, I believe, that they encounter, where it just melts away. And in this one, there's another one-shot as well. It's where like this guy, he goes on a late night bus and he encounters some aliens or monsters that kill him, skin him, and they take his skin and put it on one of their monster friends, and they go and infiltrate society. So yeah, that was like, so the very first Garo issue that I ever read. The second issue that I read was the 1975 issue. And this one, if you compare just the years, very different in terms of the vibes, because 66, you've got a lot of Shirato Sanpei, Mizuki Shigeru, all that type of stuff. 75, you're starting to see more of Heta Uma pop up. And you definitely do see that because, just to give an example, we've got a work titled Wintertown by Anzai Miyamaru, which is a very, you know, if you look at the style of it, I love his art a lot, but on the end of like I can't tell whether it's Heta Uma, Gekiga, I guess both, because they're similar vibes, but yeah, Heta Uma mostly, I would say. But you have them, you've got Nagashima Shinji, which I've shown on the channel before, a little piece by Tsuge Yoshiharu. But there was, this one's by Taro. Let me just try to find it. There, so more Heta Uma as well. So very different, right? This being my second issue ever to read from Garo. Very, very different. I didn't realize how different it was. Just seeing the Gekiga and the Heta Uma in here. There was also a Ebisu. There we go. The very first Ebisu one-shot that I've ever read. And this one is about a group of workers that are extremely lazy and their boss gets really angry at them. And he gets so angry to the point where he like punches them and it actually kills them. So here you go, he punches them and they just die on the spot. And there's just this whole epidemic of workers dying from one hit. But yeah, we've got Kawasaki Yukio. Who's this? Is this, what's the name of this mangaka again? It was, yes, Hisanori Iwamoto. That's the name of this mangaka. We've got some other works, some work by Shinichi Abe. This is also the first thing I've experienced from Shinichi Abe, and I was just so confused because, number one, this is a very detailed 2-page spread by Abe. If you are more used to his works that are like from the Miyoko Asagaya feeling, it's quite different seeing how detailed it is here. So I was also confused because I didn't know what was going on, but from first glance you wouldn't really tell, you can't really tell that this is Shinichi Abe, because I'll pull out Miyoko as well just to give a comparison and why I didn't figure out that it was Shinichi Abe even after I read Shinichi Abe. This is what is in the Miyoko Asagaya feeling book. The stories in here, you can tell the art is a lot different compared to the extremely detailed backgrounds that we saw in this one here. So even within the same mangaka, having that variety and seeing how their art style and stories change is also just an amazing thing to learn about. And so that's the start of Garo. From that point on, I collected more and more to the point where, you know, I have tons now, which I am making videos on consistently, hopefully consistently. But of course, the natural progression going from Garo was learning about how it ended and what came after it. So it ended in, so it started in 1964, ended in 2002. In 2002, there were only 4 issues as well. But after, or I think it was 98 maybe, that Axe started. So Axe was created by some of the editors and the team from Garo, leaving Garo because of like after Katsuichi Nagai passed away, who was the founder, one of the founders of Garo, there was like some, I guess, conflict and some people left Garo. And so Axe was founded. So I believe this is my very first Axe issue that I read. I might be wrong, but definitely one of the early ones that I read. So this is 37, volume 37, a cover by Minoru Sugiyama, who does sci-fi stories, which I haven't actually showed off on the channel yet. So I should do that sometime soon. So here we've got a interview by Tsugiyama and Furuya. So Furuya, who did Palepoli. This is one chapter from some art from Sugiyama, I believe, from the story Girl Device. Yes. No, not Girl Device. Mother Cosmos, that's the name of the manga. Mother Cosmos, which is a sci-fi manga. So getting into Axe, again, another big shift because, you know, this is in the 90s. Was this in, when was this published? Does it say here? I can't see it right now. Either the very late 90s or the early 2000s. I can't see it right now, but I'll put it in the description later. But we've got other mangaka that I just discovered as well, never heard of before. This is Ikuko Hatayama, I believe their name is. Does like drama pieces, very intricate artworks and character designs. Got a story here by Nishioka Kyodai, which I fell in love with more and more as time passed. Got a story by Nakano Shizuka, who also does like slice of life, magical realism, drama stories too. Hisauchi Michio, erotic stories. Toranosuke Shimada, I believe the name is. What else do we have? Oh, we have, what's her name? Kurihara Takashi, yes. Some like cartoony fun manga with this little demon guy. But yeah, just going through Axe issues. Oh yes, and we do have some Seigitai by Goto Yuka, which I have showed off before. This is a chapter in here. So it was still serializing at this point, which is just cool to have. And also another chapter of another book that I showcased in that same Heta Uma video. This is a chapter of Jacaranda by Shiriagari Kotobuki, which I love. But yeah, this was one of the early Axe issues that I got into. And just to showcase the most recent Axe issue that I have, we've got this one here, Axe 156. So there are, I think, 159 so far. I haven't bought the rest yet, but as of right now in my collection, this is the most recent issue, cover by Sakabashira Imiri. And I haven't read this yet, but just showcasing that Axe is still going. This is a story by Koichi Matsuda, who's coming out with a book in July. Yeah, July. So keep a lookout for that. So I haven't read this yet either, but if you like Axe and you do want to buy issues, Axe is released, like their schedule is they're a bi-monthly magazine. So every 2 months, or was it 3? No, every 2 months they release an issue. So we're on 159 now, I believe. But yeah, so coming back to Garo and just looking at magazines in general, that was how it started. So these 3 specific issues started it all. That got me into all the different mangaka in Garo, from all the different movements like Gekiga, Heta Uma, Eroguro as well. Moved on to learning and discovering Axe. And another thing as well that now I'm getting into would be even more alternative manga magazines. So let's move this up now. This is a recent discovery and endeavor of mine. I'm just moving books in and out of onto my bed. So these two are manga magazines. On the left, we have Gento, and on the right, we have Yagyo. So for me, just going back and recapping, it was Garo, then it was Axe, and then started to learn about all the other different types of manga magazines. So in this case, Gento and Yagyo, I still don't know too much about. I believe Gento was primarily made for Tsuge Yoshiharu, and they're also like a manga magazine with a lot of gekiga. Let's like, for example, let's see if I recognize any mangaka in here, because I still haven't read an issue. I'm just collecting them very early at this point to read for later. I believe this artist, no, not this one. This artist is Isao Yamada, who had a story in Glaolia, which I'll showcase later, because I do want to mention, of course, Glacier Bay Books. So yeah, I don't really recognize any other mangaka here. I believe this is a Tsuge Yoshiharu story, or draft of a story, or tankobon. No, kashihon. So that was Gento. This is Yagyo, and it has another Tsuge Yoshiharu story in here too, which is really cool. It's in full color, which is insane. And from first glance, if you just looked at random pages of this, you wouldn't recognize that this is Yoshiharu. So that makes me really excited for the rest of the English volumes of the Yoshiharu series, just because how different it is. So we've got one by Kano Osamu, another Garo and Axe contributor. We also have, I'm just trying to see if I recognize any mangaka. Not sure who that is. Definitely do know some. Okay, this is by Mazuzo Furukawa, the founder of Mandarake, which is really cool. They've done this like unique, how do I describe this? Very traditional looking story and art. But yeah, this is just so again, unfortunately, I can't give any too much information out on either of these magazines, because I actually don't know much about them yet. So it's just a recent thing that I'm getting into, but it's showcasing how Garo has started this manga magazine obsession, just by showcasing to me the variety you can get from a manga magazine. But the manga magazines that I'm collecting, they're more alternative manga magazines. So I don't have any like Shounen or Seinen magazines, for example, just because I think for me, collecting manga magazines, I just want to familiarize myself with alternative manga first, because the world of Shounen and Seinen magazines is just too large at this point. Like it's too impossible to collect. At least with Garo, at least with Gento and Yagyo, you have a finite number of issues that you can collect and find and learn about. And my interests are in Gekiga, Heta Uma anyways. So anything from the 60s to the 2000s with stuff that appeared in Garo and all of these magazines, those are my main points of interest anyway. So it makes more sense for me to focus on this first rather than collecting various sort of manga magazines. So yeah, so I'll swap these now for, let me pull out, yes, Glaolia. So now that I think about it, let me get more of Glacier Bay Books. 1 second. Alright, so I'll pull out these two. So we've got From This Flame, Favorable Wind, we've got Mothers. So I just want to put a spotlight on Glacier Bay because they are probably my favorite, they are my favorite English publisher right now. So everything they've done, I've loved, and I'm not joking. Like all the books that I have from them, which is not all of them yet, but slowly picking them up, I've loved. And my very first, sorry my voice, my very first book that I bought from them was Glacier 3, which is their very, oh man, this it's like an anthology, a collection of works that they've that are centered on like alternative manga, lesser known mangaka. So you have people like Yuichi Yokoyama, you have Junichiro Saito, who did let me just pull it up, who did Shit Tofu, for example. You have let's see, Kondo Akino, another Junichiro Saito, and Isao Yamada. Yes, there we go, White Dream. That's the mangaka that I pointed off before. But this was my very first introduction to Glacier Bay Books as a whole. And so again, just looking at the variety that they have and bringing to light so many cool mangaka, unique stories, styles, that sort of thing. This book is amazing. I believe, did it win awards? I'm not too sure, but it better have, because this is a really high quality book that I would recommend for anyone who's a fan of alternative manga to pick up. So Glacier Bay Books, I'm a huge fan of them. I have supported them in their most recent Kickstarter as well. I bought pretty much every single one of their books. They're releasing one by Natsujike Miyazaki, who is like a really, their storytelling is really weird, but at the same time very emotional. I'm not going to spoil too much because, you know, do pick it up when they do release it. They also are doing a reprint of Children of Newtown, which I'm very excited for, because when I got into Glacier Bay, it had already been out of print, so very excited for that too. But for example, like some of the earliest books that I've had from Glacier Bay were From This Flame by Omi Konomi, a short story collection with very magical and beautiful artworks. And I love the actual stories as well. They're very like thought-provoking. So I highly recommend Omi Konomi. Second thing as well, A Favorable Wind on Full Sail. So number one, I just gotta say, the color in this cover is amazing. I love this blue and orange, which I never really thought about before, like in terms of having a cover like that. But if you like Gekiga, this is a sort of example of, I guess, more modern Gekiga, or a neo Gekiga, contemporary type of Gekiga, because, you know, this is not from the 60s, 80s, 70s, that sort of thing. This is a more recent, like in the 2000s, but it's got the same vibe. You know, this person here, the design is reminiscent of Hayashi, Seiichi, and a lot of the stories are reminiscent of those Gekiga artists like Seiichi, like Oji Suzuki. So it's a really interesting style that, you know, knowing that this is in the style of Gekiga, but a more modern form of it. This is also one of my favorite reads from, like, I think 2023 that I read this, or 2022. Amazing book as well, highly recommend that too. And now I'm getting through Mothers, also published by Glacier Bay Books. This one is by Kusuhara Umi, and it is another short story collection. So I can't say much yet because I'm still reading it, but they also came with this really cool bookmark. So yeah, there's a bunch of stories that I'm not sure if they are tied. Oh, well, it says here, exploring the emotionally fraught nature of human relations and the process both of giving and receiving love. So very much up my alley in terms of what I like in manga. But yeah, Glacier Bay Books, huge shout out to them. I really am like amazed by all of their releases that they've put out so far. And I do try to, you know, tell people about it, because they're just such a unique publisher that if you want manga that is different, high quality, emotional, memorable, then Glacier Bay pretty much is nailing that right now. So huge shout out to them, extremely amazing people, and also very nice people as well. But yeah, that's a little bit for Glacier Bay. Let me pull out what other books that I have to talk about. I think that was actually, yeah, that was actually all that I was planning for today. I did want to show off some Trash Market, of course. Tsuge Taro, the brother of Tsuge Yoshiharu. There's Trash Market, and there's also Slum Wolf that I have from him. Slum Wolf is my favorite from the two, but Trash Market as well is still a really good one. It's got his very first one-shot that he's made, Up on the Hilltop. This is also translated by Ryan Holmberg, another, and the artist is another big name to look out for in Gekiga. And also some translations of some interviews that Taro did. So yeah, I think other than that, I'm not sure. I think I've pretty much gone through every stage of my manga reading journey, like the beginnings, the exploration, the current stages. In terms of the future, what am I looking forward to in the future? I guess I can talk about that as well. It might be a bit of a shorter section. The future, one part of the future I'm looking forward to is more horror works by the Smudge imprint, Living the Line. Of course, they released Her Frankenstein as their very first book. The next book that they're releasing is the UFO Mushroom Invasion by Marina Shirakawa. They're very unique books and hard to find books. That is just amazing seeing in the English market. So I'm very excited for that. What else am I excited for? I'm also excited for, let me just pull it out, the English version of Suburban Hell by Kanafuro Taro. Okay, got it. Another very violent horror work, very gory actually. This one will be released by Starfruit Books, so very hyped for that. So two other things. What else? I am also looking forward to more Ichiba. Of course, you know, I think Ichiba has been releasing something at least every year. Recently, he released Deba, so I'm always looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to collecting more manga magazines, looking forward to collecting and still reading Garo, of course. But at the same time, I'm balancing a lot of the alternative stuff with the more, like just different things in general. Like, for example, I recently finished reading Dungeon Meshi, which was amazing. I love that. I will probably start reading another ongoing series. Like I've watched the anime for Kaguya-sama. I might continue that in the manga, maybe. So tons of different things that I still want to go ahead and read. Oh, I'm also looking forward to the Maruo Suehiro book, which is, not sure when that's coming out, but that will be coming out in English. There also is going to be Kamuiden Shirato Sanpei, English version, published by Jordan Quarterly, coming out next year, sometime next year. So tons of things I'm looking forward to in manga in general. But yeah, the journey continues. We'll always be reading manga. Even if I am busy, I will try to read something, even a chapter or so. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. This one didn't really have too much of a structure, just me taking random books from my shelf, shoving them in your faces and just talking about it without any notes. So it's more, I guess for me, it was just fun to reminisce and just pull out so many different things that I've read and had fun with over the years. So yeah, even with everything I've read, I still feel so, like, I still kind of feel like a beginner there's so many things that I don't know about, so many different parts of the manga world that I still am not like definitely not an expert in, because I would say I'm not an expert in any part of manga. Like even with all the Garo issues that I've read, even with all the alternative manga I've collected, I still feel like there's so much to learn and there's so much to find, discover out there. So it's a constant journey of just learning about everything, getting to know different artists and getting to understand what all these decades look like in terms of alternative manga and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed that one. This was a really long one, but this was a very fun video, and I guess for me, just a relaxing one to just talk about manga and my personal experiences with it, my tastes, how they've changed, how they've grown over time. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.